Imagine a time when a king's word was more powerful than any prophecy. In a world where the powerful surrounded themselves with advisors who only told them what they wanted to hear, one man stood out, challenging the system. He didn't care what others thought. He wasn't afraid of the king. His name was Micaiah, and he is the central figure in one of the most impactful and controversial prophecies in the Bible. King Ahab, known for his evil and corruption, gathered false prophets in his palace, sycophants who made pleasant predictions, but who were completely disconnected from the truth. And amidst the sea of lies, Micaiah rose as a voice of truth, a voice that was never welcomed with open arms. But what made Micaiah so special? Why was he so hated by Ahab? What did he predict that ended up coming true in a surprising way? Today, let's dive into this fascinating story and delve into the details of this prophecy that revealed the fate of Ahab and the children of Israel. If you're already curious, get ready, because this story will surprise you in ways you never imagined. But before we begin, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any amazing content like this. Now, without further ado, let's understand who Micaiah was and what happened during this crucial moment in Israel's history, the political and spiritual context of the time. Let's travel back in time to understand the political and spiritual context in which Micaiah lived. Imagine a divided kingdom, a people that was once united under the leadership of great kings, now fragmented and disoriented. After King Solomon's death, the kingdom of Israel split into two parts, the northern kingdom Israel and the southern kingdom Judah. Israel, the northern kingdom, was under the rule of King Ahab, a monarch whose actions would define the spiritual decline of the entire nation. Ahab, married to Jezebel, a Phoenician princess devoted to Baal, introduced idolatry into the heart of Israel, establishing temples to false gods and persecuting the prophets of the Lord. However, unlike his father, Ahab was not only a corrupt and vain ruler, he was completely obsessed with power, manipulation, and control. The influence of his wife Jezebel was crucial in spreading pagan practices and further distancing Israel from God. The kingdom of Judah, on the other hand, had kings like Jehoshaphat, who still tried to follow God's teachings, but they were far from immune to external influences. This division between the two kingdoms represented a time of deep spiritual uncertainty, where the Israelites were at the mercy of their leaders' reckless decisions. Now, in the midst of this tense political situation and spiritual failure, Micaiah appears as a true prophet of God, someone who would not bow to the king's power, nor fear the consequences of his words. The call to war and the need for a prophecy. The story of Micaiah and his famous prophecy begins with an impending war. Ahab, seeking to expand his territories and recover the city of Ramoth-Gilead, which was under enemy control, decided to engage in battle against the Syrians. For this, he sought an alliance with King Jehoshaphat of Judah, asking for help in the war. Jehoshaphat, being a king who still feared God, made a sensible request before engaging in battle. We need to consult God about this decision. We cannot go to war without knowing what he thinks. Ahab, who already had his own network of prophets, quickly summoned them. There were 400 prophets who appeared before the king. Every single one of them said the same thing. Go, O king, the Lord will deliver the city into your hands. These prophets were, in fact, flattering Ahab, saying exactly what he wanted to hear. It was the kind of prophecy he loved to hear. But Jehoshaphat, with spiritual discernment, was not convinced. Jehoshaphat, suspicious, asked, "Is there not another prophet of the Lord whom we can consult?" This response from Ahab is quite revealing. He preferred to surround himself with prophets who pleased him, who told him what he wanted to hear, even if it were lies. But Jehoshaphat insisted that Micaiah be summoned. Reluctantly, Ahab ordered the prophet to be brought. The arrival of Micaiah and the prophecy of truth. Micaiah was brought to the palace, and before even meeting the king, the messenger who had been sent to fetch him tried to persuade him not to contradict the other prophets. The messenger, wanting to avoid a confrontation, said to Micaiah, Look, all the other prophets have said that the war will be a success. Why don't you say the same thing?" But Micaiah, with an unshakable spirit, answered firmly, "Whatever the Lord tells me, that is what I will speak." When Micaiah arrived at the palace and met Ahab, he, in an ironic manner, said, "Go, O king, and you will be successful." But Ahab, already suspicious of the irony, asked, "Tell me the truth. What does the Lord actually say?" "I saw all Israel scatter on the mountains, like sheep without a shepherd." These words meant that Ahab would die in battle, and that his army would be left without leadership. But Micaiah did not stop there. He revealed something even more shocking. "I saw the throne of God, and a lying spirit came before the Lord, saying, I will be a lying spirit in the mouth of the king's prophets." In other words, the 400 prophets who were prophesying victory for Ahab were being used by a spirit of falsehood, sent by God as judgment upon the king. Micaiah was exposing not only the lie, but also God's severe action against Ahab. Zedekiah, one of the false prophets, became furious and challenged Micaiah. "Where did the Spirit of the Lord go for me to speak to you?" Ahab, enraged, ordered that Micaiah be imprisoned and fed bread and water until he returned from the battle. Micaiah, with courage, responded, "If you return in peace, the Lord did not speak through me." And he added, "Let all of you hear this, that what I said is the truth of God, the fulfillment of the prophecy, the death of Ahab and the end of a kingdom." Ignoring Micaiah's warning, Ahab went to war, but with a plan. He feared Micaiah's prophecy, so he ordered Jehoshaphat to wear the royal robes while he disguised himself as an ordinary soldier. His hope was that with this disguise, he would escape the fate of death predicted by Micaiah. However, the Bible tells us a Syrian soldier shot an arrow at random, without any intention, and the arrow struck precisely the gap in Ahab's armor. Ahab was severely wounded and, while still in the battlefield, bled to death in his chariot. The fulfillment of the prophecy was complete. When Ahab's body was taken to be washed, the dogs licked his blood, exactly as the prophet Elijah had predicted years earlier, pointing to Ahab's tragic end. The king had defied the word of God, and the fulfillment of the prophecy, the death of Ahab and the end of a kingdom. Ahab, completely ignoring Micaiah's warning, went to battle. But deep down, he knew he was risking his life. He feared the prophecy and therefore decided to use a deceptive strategy. He ordered Jehoshaphat to wear the royal garments while he himself disguised himself as a common soldier. The idea seemed smart. If the enemies targeted the king, they would go after Jehoshaphat, and Ahab could escape unscathed. But what happened next showed that no human strategy can thwart God's plans. During the battle, the Syrians saw Jehoshaphat and thought he was the king of Israel. They surrounded him, ready to kill him, but upon realizing it wasn't Ahab, they let him go. It was at that moment that something incredible happened. The Bible tells us that a Syrian archer, without knowing exactly what he was doing, shot an arrow at random. Just one arrow, shot without a clear aim, but guided by God himself. This arrow flew through the sky and hit Ahab exactly in the gap in his armor, striking a fatal point. The king, severely wounded, was placed back in his chariot, and there, in the midst of the battle, he began to slowly bleed to death. His army, seeing the tragedy, panicked and fled. What happened next was even more astounding. When Ahab's body was taken to be washed in Samaria, the king's blood spilled on the ground, and the dogs came and licked up his blood, exactly as the prophet Elijah had predicted years before. The king who tried to deceive God, who persecuted the true prophets and lived surrounded by lies, met a tragic end, proving that there is no power, wealth, or human strategy that can annul the truth of God. Micaiah, who was unjustly imprisoned for speaking the truth, proved to be right, but his fate after this is a mystery. The Bible doesn't tell us what happened to him, but his story leaves us with a powerful lesson. The truth of God always prevails, even when the world tries to silence it. But Micaiah teaches us that truth does not depend on others' acceptance. Even if you are alone, even if the whole world is against you, if you are on the side of God's truth, you are already in the majority. So I ask you, would you have the courage to be a Micaiah today? Would you be willing to speak the truth, even if it costs you your reputation or even your freedom? If this story impacted you, subscribe to the Sacred Stories channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss more content like this. Leave your comment below. What have you learned from Micaiah's story? I want to know your opinion. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video. So, what did you think of Micaiah's story? Would you have the courage to speak the truth, even when everyone around you prefers to live in a lie? Think about it. In a world where the truth is often ignored and words are twisted, Micaiah teaches us that even when standing alone, God's truth always prevails.